The Seventh-day Adventist Church strongly decries all forms of abuse. Unfortunately, in cases of domestic violence, children are at heightened risk of being mistreated. For this reason, it is imperative that the protection of children is prioritized when responding to abuse situations. When child abuse is discovered or even suspected, it must immediately be reported to legal authorities. It is not the role of an End It Now advocate to investigate child abuse. That is the work of professionals employed by state-specific agencies. It is expected that the End It Now advocate act as a mandated reporter and report any suspicion of child abuse to the authorities. If you become aware of or suspect child abuse, you have a duty to report this information to the appropriate authorities in your jurisdiction. It is essential that reporting child abuse happens in a timely manner. You are not responsible for proving the abuse or collecting evidence. Instead, you must report any reasonable suspicion that a child is being abused or neglected. If you are unsure, the best thing to do is to report or seek advice from Child Protective Services. In most locations, reporting child abuse is mandatory, and you may be prosecuted if you fail to report. There are three broad categories to address when it comes to reporting. 1. Reporting to legal authorities. 2. Reporting to church authorities. And 3. Addressing the accused in light of the accusation and possible removal or other steps. The following is guidance and is not meant to address every circumstance or possibility. Instead, we want to provide a foundation and good principles that can help guide you through the reporting process. We will assume the listening step has taken place as addressed previously, and that at this stage someone has alleged abuse or you have observed abuse. In cases of abuse of a minor or other vulnerable non-minor, you will likely have legal obligation to report the abuse. Familiarize yourself with the local reporting agencies and reporting methods before you are confronted with the need to report. If a report is required, you should consider advising the victim or other responsible person, typically a parent or guardian, that you plan to lodge one. You can continue to support him or her through the notification process with law enforcement or other state agencies. Keep in mind, there are instances where you should not advise the victim or other responsible person. Seek help if you are unsure. The conference, Adventist Risk Management, or your local attorney can be valuable resources as you navigate the duties and responsibilities here. While state laws vary, typically anyone who works with children, even in the broad sense, is a mandated reporter, which means failure to report to the legal authorities may have potentially severe consequences. In Canada, everyone is a mandated reporter. Even if you are not a mandated reporter, the agencies will typically receive discretionary reports. There are typically laws in place to protect the person reporting abuse from civil liability. Remember, the reporter should not investigate abuse and is not responsible for proving abuse took place prior to reporting. If a report is made in good faith upon a reasonable suspicion of abuse, there should be no repercussions for being wrong. Once you have reported the suspected abuse, you should also notify your pastor, who should notify the local conference. In the case where the pastor is the alleged perpetrator, you should reach out to your local conference directly. Likewise, in a school setting, you should notify the principal, or if the principal is the accused, directly to the local conference. If you are unsure who to reach out to at the local conference, you might consider Human Resources, the Ministerial Director, or the Educational Superintendent as applicable, or one of the conference officers. When the accused is a person in a position of authority within the church institution, the matter takes on some heightened concern, as the accuser may be reluctant to discuss the matter with another church official. Great care must be taken to allow a reasonable forum for the accuser to outline the concerns in a safe and unbiased environment. This must not only actually be true, it must also be perceived to be true by all involved. It is appropriate when there is an allegation of abuse to remove the employee or volunteer from service, even if only at the accusation stage. It is not the role of the church organization to replace the investigative work of law enforcement or social services, But the church does have its own ecclesiastical disciplinary process, as well as an obligation to manage employees and volunteers independent of the legal system. We must hold a high standard in the church, and even when the legal system is unable to produce a conviction, this does not mean the accused is spiritually fit or authorized to continue working with children. What happens next can vary considerably depending on the circumstances. In some cases, the church is made aware of misconduct due to a criminal investigation. For example, a teacher is arrested by the FBI for child pornography possession and distribution. After the arrest, law enforcement may refer the matter to the prosecutor, and if a conviction is obtained, the burden on the church to determine the legitimacy of the report is greatly reduced, and the problem may be resolved. However, in some instances, law enforcement may not pursue a criminal case for a variety of reasons. In such instances, the church has an obligation to hear both sides and determine if the report is likely to be true and how the church should respond. In the case of church members or local volunteers, the local church has the responsibility to engage in a hearing process and impose any subsequent discipline. Conference administration should be made aware of the situation, and while it can be a helpful support, the responsibility for church discipline lies to the local church. In the case of church employees, the conference administration must be made aware, and it is responsible for handling the hearing and discipline procedures, as outlined in their working policy. In instances where both church discipline is under consideration from the local church, and at the same time the accused is a conference employee, efforts should be made to refrain from duplication of efforts and processes where possible. These areas can be complex, and there will be times when you are unsure of what you should do or what is needed. Always feel free to reach out to conference leadership or legal counsel. If one of your members, staff, or volunteers are involved, also notify your conference and the pastor. Bottom line, if a child discloses abuse, or if you suspect abuse, you need to report this to legal authorities. You don't need proof of abuse to be required to initiate a report. You only need reasonable suspicion. The authorities will investigate and take appropriate steps to protect the child based on the evidence gathered in the investigation. Do not handle it in-house. You are neither qualified nor authorized to investigate, and such attempts may interfere with police or other agency investigation. Let's talk about silent whistle. If an employee has a concern regarding perceived unethical activity while at work, the individual is encouraged to talk with a supervisor, administrator, or human resources. However, at times an employee may not be comfortable voicing the issue directly. In such situations, an employee may access the Silent Whistle third-party reporting system by visiting www.adventist.silentwhistle.com. The Silent Whistle is a confidential, anonymous reporting tool that allows employees to report any violation, including fraud, abuse, and other misconduct in the workplace while cultivating a positive work environment. The reports go to the Office of General Counsel for the Seventh-day Adventist Church headquarters. Friends, together we can end it now.